And what they're doing right now, like as we speak, they're looking at the security guarantees. What do they actually look like? And bringing a list of options under Secretary Rubio, a list of options they'll bring to the president and to the allied leaders as well and say, look, this is what it looks like. Because if you bring in good security guarantees, this allows Zelensky some options as well in working with Putin so he can settle this conflict. And I think that we're on a path to do that. And it took bold leadership to do it. It's something that's going to be written around about in history.
This is a peace deal in progress. The White House confirming no boots on the ground, but the United States may provide air support as part of a deal to end the 3.5-year war. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Jonathan Hoenig, Dagan McDowell, Brian Brenberg, and with us for the entire hour, Fox Business real estate contributor Katrina Campins. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
So military leaders from NATO are meeting to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine. One option would be to reportedly send European forces to Ukraine, operating under their own flags and not NATO, and put the United States in charge of their command. The immediate goal is to get Zelensky and Putin to the table for a bilateral, followed by a trilateral with President Trump. The White House confirming all options are on the table for location of the face-to-face. We're waiting for details and a potential date on that. But we've talked about security guarantees in this context before. No boots on the ground. That's U.S. boots on the ground. That's not something that the American people seem to have an appetite for. But the European allies would have to send their forces, of course, not operating under that NATO umbrella.
Right.
This is it's tricky, Brian.
That is the understatement of the year. But just for context, remember not that long ago how all the critics of Trump said, well, he just bows to Putin. He won't do anything that Putin doesn't want. Putin's calling the shots. I think it's fascinating that you have basically the entire administration and the president himself saying we will be involved in securing Ukraine's peace. We're not going to put troops on the ground, but we might have air power just outside of Ukraine. We might do other things to support Europe. So once again, this is not a president who's bowing to Putin. He's certainly not bowing to Zelensky either. What he's trying to do basically is call balls and strikes. Mm-hmm. He's trying to figure out what's possible for peace, who needs to be at the table, where America can help and where America should shut its mouth, where we have no room to speak for Ukraine. They speak for themselves. But I love that he's doing that. And, you know, Putin today, I guess, or yesterday was out. He was calling Zelensky names. What do you call him? A puppet or something like that. He's got all sorts of names for him. I don't care.
Illegitimate puppet.
All that matters, he can call him all the names in the world. He has to, because that's his whole line about Zelensky. The question is, will Putin sit down with Zelensky? And if he does, that's all that matters.
Well, you know, Ukraine was given security guarantees in the early 90s, as I recall, for giving up their nuclear weapons. They've been burned
by Russia,
by Western security guarantees, by the United States. And, you know, who started this war? This is Putin's war. And for my mind, the peace comes not necessarily when the fighting stops, but it comes when the aggressor submits. That is Russia in this case. And it's why I don't understand why any type of ceasefire or any type of halt in the fighting isn't a reward for Putin. If we really want to end the war, why not arm Ukraine to the teeth and actually show Russia that their aggression can be turned back?
Putin's a wild card, though, to Brian's point. Will he show up to the conversations? He's taking part in this lead up to it. But say it gets to a place, Dagan, that he doesn't like what's going on, and all of a sudden he pulls the rug and says, no deal.
I just look at the dollars and cents in all of this, and I'm from this day forward going to not be, a Russian historian or a military strategist. I'm just going to look at the price of oil, because what will drive Russia out of Ukraine is a collapse in energy prices, and or a collapse in supply, and you do one of two things. Like, you can crater demand. That can happen if there is a global recession, or you can also increase supplies. And we hold the cards on that note. And it's not just oil, it's natural gas. Mm-hmm. And let me explain. So you just swamp the world with oil and drive down prices. in terms of prices, because yesterday, Secretary Scott Bessent and Peter Navarro said that if India stopped buying Russian oil, it could help end the war. Listen, there is so much oil sloshing around this world. And if you're not going to sanction every major buyer with secondary sanctions, China, then jawboning is pointless. I don't care who it is, even if it's the Treasury Secretary. And I know that he accused India of essentially profiteering from Russian oil because they're buying it at a discount. But what we are doing, and this is critical even more than our oil production, our natural gas, particularly liquefied natural gas, those exports have soared just this year. LNG is up, exports of it 20%, more than 20% from just a year ago. And the biggest destinations from January to August for those exports, the Netherlands, France, Spain, Italy, the United Kingdom, and Germany. And those they have gotten off Russian natural gas and they have gotten onto U.S. natural gas. And what Joe Biden did to this country, it was idiotic danger or dangerous idiocy, one or the other. I just wanted to read.
He says he didn't even do it. It was the auto pen.
And I could go into.
Blame the pen.
And you can look at you can look at the history of oil, the price of oil. Oil soars, Russia invades Afghanistan, Georgia, Crimea, and Ukraine. It collapses. It was adjusting for inflation. I readjusted today because my numbers were wrong. It fell from $137 a barrel in December of '79 to under $48 a barrel when they finally left Afghanistan in February of '89. But one thing that I was reading that Biden did that I thought was just horrific, that the Biden administration was encouraging the purchase of Russian oil while cracking down on U.S. production of oil, as if a derrick here and a derrick over there, it creates the same amount of pollution.
Well,
the same amount of, again, it just shows a complete moronity when it comes to the global fossil fuel market.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, didn't they also allow that pipeline to move forward to connect Europe and Russia? It was something the Trump administration didn't want to do.
Yeah, the Nord Stream.
Nord Stream 2.
Yeah.
So if the price of oil and energy come down, that dissuades Putin's desire to reassemble the Soviet Union?
And I would just say this, at $63 a barrel, it's starting to work, but I don't think it's there yet where he, is really back deep into that corner. But I think we're on our way there.
And if
all
he
these points that Dagan's making.
And if he achieves land, if he gets land concession, if he gets to keep portions of Ukraine, does that dissuade him from the next conquest 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down against a victim country?
I disagree with that. It's an off-ramp, and I think that President Trump understands the kind of leader that he's dealing with, and that if he tries to get in his way and not give him an off-ramp and an opportunity to save face, then he'll just, Putin, dig his heels into the ground more. I think Trump is an amazing reader of people and understanding who he's dealing with. And for that, I want to come to you, Katrina, because in your business, you make a lot of deals too. And they come down to the wire and they're tight and they're difficult to sometimes bring two sides together. To me, I'm watching how he's negotiating this. He's acting like a true mediator to some of the points you were making, Brian. And I feel like he's been successful so far. The question is, can he get it into the end zone?
Well, and if anyone can make this happen, I believe it's Trump. He's a master negotiator. I've seen him do deals time and time again. He actually said it at a press conference recently. He said, I make deals. That's what I do.
Right.
And having been in business now for 20 years, with the majority of my clients are alpha males with big egos, and they play tough guys most of the time, right? But what I found is my goal is to get them to the table, because 90% of the time when you get them to the table face to face, the deal gets done. I just had this happen last week. I've been trying to do a deal, and both sides were playing tough guy. And I just kept on pushing, and they got on a call, even just a call, and they were friendly as can be. I said 2 words. The deal's happening.
Right.
And so I think that's what Trump's great at, and to your point, too. And one thing that I think Trump is great at is not taking things personally, which is a constant reminder for all of us in business, is whether you're a friend or an enemy.
It's business. It's not personal.
It's not personal, and he treats everybody at the business table the same. And it's been amazing to see him now for decades, even with people that said really harsh things about him.
Right.
He does business with them again.
Right.
He doesn't take it personally. And so if he's able to do this, which I think he will be, that's my gut instinct, it'll be historic.
So I wanted to be clear about what I was trying to say.
Okay.
About the moronic idiocy, the dangerous, whatever you want to call it. Biden and his cohorts were dangerous morons. They told India to start buying Russian oil after the invasion of Ukraine. They asked India to accept Russian crude as other countries imposed bans to prevent a major oil spike after the invasion of Ukraine. So Biden's policies caused oil to spike to north of $100 a barrel. It was $104 a barrel when Putin invaded Ukraine. That's why he invaded.
Right.
Ukraine would not be in this position if not for the Biden administration. And then Joe Biden indirectly helped finance this war by encouraging one of the biggest consumers of Russian oil to purchase that crude. And on top of that, continue to drive up the price of oil by driving down production here in the United States and keeping that price elevated.
Right.
For time, and I mean, prices have only come down to the 60s under President Trump. But again, with a complete misunderstanding, a purposeful misunderstanding, that oil and fossil fuels, oil really, because natural gas is difficult to move. Oil is fungible, and it doesn't matter roughly where it's produced. It's like 1 barrel here is worth what produced is worth 1 barrel produced in Russia, in essence.
Right.
We should praise the Lord that President Trump is in office and that Biden is G-O-N-E out.
And I'll just take a moment to clarify the point that I was making about the pipeline on the natural gas side. You're talking about the exports under President Trump just this year alone. Well, what did Joe Biden do? In May of 2021, the administration waived sanctions on the company that was responsible for Nord Stream 2. And Biden stated that they waived those sanctions because the pipeline was nearly complete. And if you imposed sanctions at that time, it would hurt our European allies. At the same time, they were constructing an energy an energy policy here in the United States where we weren't exporting. We could have easily picked that up. We have the supplies to do it. The companies were willing to do it. The LNG terminals to export have been in the works since before I was working at this company, which is at least 7 years ago. And so all the infrastructure was there, and they allowed Russia to do that to supply Europe. So, everybody needs to think about Joe Biden and his policies and the why behind it, because a lot of it doesn't make sense.